Miami Heat might have found their newest and most realistic trade target in the market, as well as who they could be looking to flip for that player. My name is Manuel Buroz, and we're going to talk about all that on this edition of Heat Digest. Before we do that, let's make sure that we're subscribing to the Miami Heat Digest community as we continue to grow that community into the second quarter of the regular season, with Christmas right around the corner and a lot of these marquee matchups gearing up, as well as some more intense news and rumors on the court and off the court. Make sure you're tuned in so we can give you all the latest with the Miami Heat. Before we talk about who that player that could be traded for the Miami Heat, we'll talk about who the Miami Heat could be trading. And in my opinion, it is Mr. Scary Terry. Terry Rozier has not had the year that we really expect him to have with the Miami Heat in his first full season, off-season training camp, and everything else. Quote, Terry Rozier is a potential trade candidate per Mike Escato. Aside from Butler, the Heat trade candidates are Miami's future first-round draft picks and Terry Rozier, according to NBA executives who've spoken with Hoops Hype. The 30-year-old guard was recently moved to the bench as his scoring production is the lowest in 8 years. And that is not an exaggeration. If we look at the numbers right here for Mr. Terry Rozier, 13 points per game, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. He's shooting 40% from the field and 36% from 3, which in retrospect does not look bad. These look like very, very solid, capable numbers for a starting one or even a backup one in some cases. But Terry Rozier, we know, is not just a starting caliber one. He is one of the best starting ones in the association, in my opinion. He's a great scorer, especially off the bounce. When he's hot, he's one of the hottest shooters in the association. But we haven't seen this Terry Rozier that we have seen for the past 5 to 6 seasons, I would say. This is the Terry Rozier that we saw before anything happened, before he was a starting caliber one, before he got his opportunity in Boston. He was putting between 8 to 11 points per game in those seasons before he was given the opportunity in the playoffs and due to injuries and all that kind of stuff. And with Boston, now we're looking at a situation where, again, he's scoring the lowest he's had in 8 seasons. He's not really looking as confident as he did at the beginning of even this season. Like, we really expected him. Yes, last year he came in mid-season, had that neck injury, could never really find his footing. The Miami Heat as a team never really had any footing underneath them. We thought with the regular with a off season, with a training camp, this was going to be his launching pad, and it was. He started the season out very, very strong, very, very aggressive. We thought it was going to be a match made in heaven with that backcourt, one of the most underrated backcourts, in my opinion, offensively, with Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier, both relatively in their prime, I would say, and both being just flat-out scorers who can also play make for themselves and for the rest of the team. But again, these past few weeks have not really been what the Miami Heat have looked for. And then when you look at his contract situation, which is something else you have to take into account here, Terry Rozier right now, he's making 24.9, just south of 25 mil. The next year he's going to make north of that at 26.6, and then he'll be an unrestricted free agent when he turns 32 years old. If this slump, if you want to call it a slump, continues, and let's say maybe it gets a little bit better, let's say it gets to 15 to 16 points per game, is that really good enough? Again, the Miami Heat traded for him to be a starting caliber one, to be one of the best starting caliber ones in the association. We're not looking for him to be an all-star per se, but we're looking for him to be one of the best starting ones in the league. And specifically on the offensive side of things, we understand Terry Rozier is not a great defender. He's an okay defender. I think he's probably an underrated defender in my opinion, but he's not going to be looked at for his defense. He's going to be looked at for his offense and how much production you can get from him on a consistent basis. Yes, he's probably your 4th best scoring option right now behind Bam, Tyler, and Jimmy, but there should be nights where he's the number 1 scoring option. We've seen that. Again, the beginning of the season, there were some games I specifically remember the Detroit Pistons game in Miami where he lit it up. He had, I think, 5 threes. He was very, very aggressive. You could see he had that confidence, that swagger to him, and right now he just hasn't found that or hasn't had that in the past few games. So now you got to start thinking about what else is out there, what's going on. And one player who's been in the trade rumors out in Washington, who I believe is an underrated star role player, is, in fact, Mr. Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma right now, he has been the target for a lot of teams in the association, including the Los Angeles Lakers, the Miami Heat, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Golden State Warriors, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, per Mike Escato. Quote, the Dallas Mavericks nearly traded for Kuzma last season before pivoting to acquisitions of P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford. The Indiana Pacers were interested in Kuzma before swinging a blockbuster trade to acquire Pascal Siakam. The Sacramento Kings have also been linked to Kuzma for the past 2 seasons. Other teams who've kept tabs on Kuzma include the Bucks, Warriors, Lakers, Heat, and Cavaliers. Hoop Hype has learned. And in my opinion, I like it. I really do like it. It's not something you would necessarily think about, but when we look at who Kyle Kuzma is, he would be a stretch four, maybe a tall three situation for the Miami Heat that you can mix and match him and Jimmy kind of in those 3-4 positions. You can still play Bam at the 5. It's not going to really affect Bam's minutes. You still play Tyler at that 2. Now, you may be starting to question about that 1 who we're going to have there. I really like maybe even going big, trying to put Tyler back on that point guard role or initiator. But if we're being honest, Jimmy and Bam do a lot of that anyways down the stretch of games. So maybe you put that other role back to a Duncan Robinson type, back to somebody who can be a scoring threat, a perimeter threat. And now you've got a nice little lineup out there. We still have Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez. I think you can get away with not playing a traditional 1 per se, or maybe going to go find a backup 1 that you maybe like more so than a true starting 1 for the Miami Heat. You look at Kuzma's stats this season. They are not anything crazy. I'm not gonna sit here and say he's having a career year, because he's not. He's kind of had a little bit of an injury-riddled season, but 12 games, he's started all 12. The Wizards have played 18, same number as the Miami Heat. Now, Terry Rozier has been more healthy, has been the healthier one out of the 2, but he only started in 12 games too. So you're not really losing anything when we talk about that sample size of the amount of games you started, the amount of games you played in. It's only about a 4-game difference anyways. Terry's been at 16, Kuzma's been at 12. In the end, I think Kuzma just needs or can benefit from this part of his career. Obviously, he was in Los Angeles, and he proved to be a capable 3rd, 4th option on a championship team. Yes, that team had LeBron James. Yes, that team had Anthony Davis. I understand all that. I do. But at the end of the day, he proved it, and you can't take that away from him. Now he goes to Washington, and we always kind of pictured he was going to be, kind of a resurgence type of situation, an empty stats calorie type of run for him, and it has been. Obviously hasn't translated to wins or anything like that, but I don't think he expected to be there as long as he is or has been, and I definitely didn't expect him to be there that long either. So I think he can benefit from this part of his career in the sense of he understands the highest high in the NBA as well as the lowest lows. And when I think he can come to Miami and do is be another veteran in that locker room, another young-ish player. He's similar age to Terry Rozier, as you'll see in a minute here. So I don't think it's going to be a bad addition to the locker room, bad addition on the court. I think it could be something that maybe not seamless transition, because I think you still need to find a fitting for him. He hasn't ever really been in a situation where, the ball is going to be moving. I think it should in Miami, and I think it has been in the past few weeks here. So I think that'll be good for him, and it'll be a little adjustment for him. But in the end, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez, Kyle Kuzma, it's not a bad 5 in my opinion. Now, when we look at the complete outlook of this trade, as much as I'm talking about from the actual numbers and on-court stuff, I also want to look at the contract side of it. The biggest thing for me, when you make trades, you can't just focus on the here and now. You have to also look at the future. And Kyle Kuzma, like I mentioned, similar in age to Terry Rozier, Both players are going to be 32 years old once their contract is over. Both will be unrestricted free agents, but Kyle Kuzma's his trade value, in my opinion, is a little bit higher simply because his contract is a lot more team friendly. It's going to go down as the years go on. He's going to go from 23 to 21, from 21 to 19, and then again, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. And what are you expecting from Kyle Kuzma? In my opinion, what you're expecting from Terry Rozier. In my opinion, if you get that from Kyle Kuzma, which means an 18 and 20 point per game scorer, you're really happy with that, because Kyle Kuzma is a player who, offensively, you're not necessarily going to look for him to be a 20-point per game scorer consistently. You know he can do that on any given night, but you're not necessarily looking at him being, here's the ball, go get me 20 to 24, 20 to 23 every single game. That's not necessarily going to be his role, but you know he can do that on any given night. If he gives you 18, that's a little bit more realistic. I think you can be okay with that at that 4-3 position, and maybe you can get away with playing him at the 5 in certain lineups, certain situations, just kind of having a lot more speed and a lot more athleticism out there. For Terry Rozier, you need him to be an offensive threat, because neither of these players you're looking at defensively as being stoppers, as being somebody who you think, okay, if we put them on the other team's best or second best or third best player, he's going to be a stopper and he's going to make their life very, very difficult for this game. Defensively, you're looking at both these players as being players who you put in the right system defensively with a lot of defenders around them. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero-ish, Jaime Jaquez, Khalil Ware. You put those type of players, Haywood Highsmith, you put those type of players around a Kuzma or around a Terry Rozier, they're going to be okay. So defensively, I think it's about a 50-50. I would give the nod to Kuzma. He's taller. He's more athletic, in my opinion. He can be a very good rebounder. Not very good rebounder. Compared to Terry Rozier, he can be a very good rebounder. Obviously, we're not looking at Kuzma to go down and grab 10 boards a game, something like that, but he can grab about 4 to 5 a game. Offensively is where I'm looking at and how you're going to get those scoring numbers from these players. Kuzma, I feel like, is a lot more of a he can be a lot more of a system scorer in that you swing the ball, he's going to kind of benefit more from attacking a defense on the rotation, attacking a defense who's not set up because the ball's piping around and all that stuff. Terry Rozier kind of needs the ball in his hands a little bit more. Not saying he can't be a spot-up guy, but I think he's just better in that role, and I think that's a little bit of what's going on lately. I don't think he's getting the touches that he maybe was expecting or is used to, so it's a little bit of an adjustment period, and as much as I hate to say it, he's not going to get those touches unless he's already hot. So it's kind of that double-edged sword situation. In the end, though, I think this trade could have benefited both teams. I think you make this trade. With this trade, Kuzma can come to an organization where he can benefit in the locker room and on the court. He's not really being looked at to be anything more than what he has been in the past, a third at best or fourth option offensively, someone who can be a player who, when we look at the regular season, can have spurts and have stretches where he's very, very good. And if you look in the postseason, could he win us a series? Maybe not, but a couple games in the series. I really do believe that. And Terry Rozier, you send him to Washington. He can be a mentor to Jordan Poole. I think there's similar play styles. Again, ball-dominant guards who think score first, who can play make, and I think have gotten better in both their careers. But I think Terry Rozier can really help Jordan Poole, and Terry Rozier can show that he's still an offensive scoring threat, and there's going to be a team out there that would help flip him into what he possibly is, which is, again, a number one scorer at the point guard position. But that's going to do it on this edition of Heat Digest. Comment down below if you would prefer Kuzma, you prefer Terry Rozier as a member of the Miami Heat, and what you'd be willing to give in that trade for each other, if it's there's picks involved, if it's straight up, or if there's anything else that you might think of to try and get that trade to happen. With that being said, we'll see you guys in the next edition of Heat Digest.